Welcome back to From the Shed End. Another video. Hope you're all doing well after a positive result. Theo, first of all, how you doing?
Cold again, really cold. It was -2 when I went for my run this morning in London, and it took me a good hour once I got home to defrost. But no, I've had a good weekend, recharged the batteries.
Yep.
Got to see Chelsea in the FA Cup at Stamford Bridge yesterday, which was a nice 5-0 win and a clean sheet, which was a good way to start the weekend. And yeah, looking forward to Tuesday's game against Bournemouth. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good like you. I mean, it is, I just said before, it feels warm up here. It feels almost, I did say to someone, it's going to feel like July on Tuesday with 11 degrees, 9 degrees. So I'm looking forward to that. But no, I'm good. Positive game yesterday, positive result for us. And as you got to see on the Twitter page, I called it right, 5-0. I thought I'd have to get that in there. But it was a good result, good performance. We're going to get into all of that in this video. But before we do that, please make sure you subscribe if you're new here. If you're joining as part of the live stream as well, make sure you get involved in the discussion. Leave your thoughts if you're here after the live stream in the comment section below. And as always, hit the Linktree link for the social accounts and previous podcast episodes as well. But 5-0, Morecambe. Mighty Morecambe, who gave us a bit of a fright in the first, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes. I thought this could be a really difficult game up until that goal. But yeah, I mean, let's go through the lineup first of all. We had Jurgensen in goal. You called it right with Reece James getting some minutes at right back. Tosin and Axel Disasi. We have to talk about Axel Disasi in a minute as well. I want to hear your thoughts. Renato Vega. Midfield one, really, of Lavia sort of on his own as the holding midfielder. Pedro Neto, Christopher Nkunku, João Félix, Tyrique George and Marku as our striker. Now, was there any surprises in there for you? Because we did think it might be a blend of youthful players and a bit more experience. But I think Maresca kind of, as you said before, doesn't trust some of these players. Was you surprised by any of the pickings or the absentees, I suppose, as well?
I think the kind of formation I was a bit weirded out by it at first, given Lavia was the only natural midfielder. But then as I was watching the game live, I kind of saw that Renato Vega was filling in that kind of other central midfield spot when we were in possession. The other maybe surprise was Josh Ashrampong not starting and not even coming off the bench, which is probably quite telling that he might play a part against Bournemouth, which is good news for him. Maybe now he's fully integrated into the first team. Maybe Maresca sees him as maybe a first team player in his Premier League squads up until maybe Reece James regains some fitness and he gets Fofana and Badiashile back from his injuries. But yeah, I think Ashampong probably quite happy not to come off the bench, if anything, because that's good news for him. But other than that, no real surprises. I think Madueke not featuring on the bench was maybe a bit of a surprise. But then I think Maresca mentioned that he wasn't able to finish the training session the day before because he was ill. Well, I don't know, ill now. You never know what that means. At Chelsea Football Club, it could mean absolutely anything.
B samples, A samples.
Anything, absolutely anything, yeah. And then Enzo and Caicedo and Palmer not coming off the bench. I think Caicedo wasn't even on the bench, which was good news as well, because the type of player you want to wrap up in cotton wool, and you don't really want to play him in these type of fixtures. But no real surprises other than maybe Ashampong and Lavia as the only midfielder.
I wasn't surprised at all. I think, I said we needed to go quite strong with this lineup. I know it was Morecambe; they were struggling in League Two. I think they're second from bottom, but I still think you have to respect a team that comes to Stamford Bridge and played the way that they did in that first 15 minutes or so. I thought they handled it well. The pressure that we were sort of trying to give to them, they defended very well. But I think in terms of the lineup, it was quite self-explanatory. Axel Disasi, someone that we have heavily criticised on here quite a bit during his time at Chelsea. I did think he played, misplaced passing was still there. There was still a couple of defensive errors, but I thought overall his game was actually quite decent in a centre-back partnership with Tosin that, I know it was against Morecambe, but what did you think about Disasi in his performance? Did you think he shows some signs of quality that we might be able to use for the rest of this season?
He's a frustrating one because once in the blue moon he comes up with a game like that against Morecambe. I think he did it in the league. Can't remember, was it Southampton or Leicester? A decent performance. And then he goes and has an atrocious performance like he did against Ipswich. Sure, I think he was playing right back in that game, but he's just not consistent. So it's all good to say he had a good performance against Morecambe, but if he's not able to do that week in, week out, then I don't really want him anywhere near the starting 11, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm just asking the questions. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. You know, I don't think I had him in my predicted lineup. I think I went with Levi Colwell and I think Tosin or maybe Achiempong. I'd have to go back and check. But no, I think, you know, against a League Two opposition, you expect every single one of our players in that team to be able to cope with whatever Morecambe are trying to unpick with us at the back. And I thought we did with Tosin, who we'll get onto him shortly. Felipe Jurgensen in goal. We still have question marks over our goalkeepers. We knew that obviously he was going to start. He's more the cup competition goalkeeper for us this season. I felt he was a bit shaky in goal. I don't think it was his best performance. There was a couple of times where it was sort of, you know, heart in the mouth moments where he wasn't sure if it was going to lead to a goal or he's going to concede a sloppy goal. But I don't know. I still have this question mark about goalkeepers for us, that neither of them fill me with confidence when they're in between the sticks. How would you overall assess his game yesterday?
Yeah, and like you said, quite shaky. I have to use the word shaky to describe his performance. And credit to him, he actually came out and put an Instagram post saying even he admitted that it wasn't his best performance, but he was happy with the clean sheet. So even it's good that he acknowledged the fact that he wasn't at his best, and that's something I just didn't expect from Robert Sanchez.
Yeah.
He wouldn't really put some post up like that. There was a few moments, I think one where he tried to, I think, almost catch it, but at ground level and it went through his legs.
Yeah.
A second one where I think he punched it and it went backwards, and then the Sassi had to almost clear it off the line. And then there were a few moments where his distribution wasn't at his best, kind of like trying to pass it out to one of the wing backs or the full backs, and he went out for a Morecambe throw-in. So yeah, it wasn't his best performance. I have seen some moments that fill me with confidence again in the Conference League and at other times, but overall, yeah, I feel like that was a bit of a shaky performance from the Danish shot stopper.
It wasn't his best anyway. Let's put it like that. Let's talk about the goals, because the goals were, well, sorry, no. Before we talk about the goals, let's talk about the penalty. Let's talk about the penalty incident, which I can't. I mean, I don't understand. I can't remember who it was that gave the penalty away, but I think he was playing in the wrong sport. I think, you know, had that been in the NBA, I think we would have been praising him for a block. But yeah, I mean, Nkunku's penalty type, you know, confidence is obviously not there for Nkunku at the moment. We've clearly seen that with the lack of game time he's got and some of the performances he's put in when he has started or he's come off the bench in the Premier League. But you would have backed him to score that penalty. It was a poor penalty. It didn't really help his case really to start many games in the Premier League for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, going back to the decision, I think whoever it was, the Morecambe defender, thought the ball had gone out. So I think he was raising his hand to signal that the ball was going out to the ref.
Tutonda, I think it was.
That might have been his name. And then I think by raising his hand, as soon as João Félix tried to cross it in, it hit his outstretched hand. So it was just a clumsy one.
It's actually a really good save, to be fair.
Yeah, if he was in a goal or if he was a NBA point guard or something, then he'd be doing quite a good job. But yeah, and then actually when I watched the replay, the ball had not gone out. So he was completely in the wrong. But going to Nkunku's penalty wasn't a shot of conviction, in my opinion. It was slightly low to the keeper's side, quite comfortable for the goalkeeper. And he didn't have enough power or enough kind of... he didn't really find a corner either. So all the keeper had to do was guess the correct way and he would have saved that. That being said, I think if VAR is in play, that penalty is retaken because he was fairly off his line. I think it was his Bourgogne, I think his name was the keeper.
Yeah.
Can't remember. But yeah, not a great penalty for Nkunku. And even when he scored his goal in the second half, he looked more relieved than anything because his celebrations were quite muted, I felt, which is quite telling of how satisfied he is right now with his role at Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah, it doesn't strike well when you know the celebrations. I mean, it was only against Morecambe. It's in the FA Cup. He's missed a penalty. He obviously doesn't want to make too big of a deal about it. But Tosin was probably our best striker on the pitch yesterday. First goal was brilliant. Took a wicked deflection, but still, nonetheless, it was. I mean, Reece James with the assist as well. We have to credit him for that. It was good to see him back. You know, got 45 minutes under his belt, which we'll talk about shortly. But Tosin with the first goal, brilliant goal. He's someone that I think we can use as a squad player. I think we've always brought him in as a squad player. He's not been, you know, we didn't bring him in from Fulham on a free transfer to be our primary one centre back. But it was a really good goal. Both his goals are really good. I mean, the second one, he definitely meant that one. You know, it was pinpoint. Goalkeeper potentially should save it. But Tosin overall was, I mean, he ended up getting man of the match, but he deserved it, I think, in my eyes anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a really, really good performance from Tosin, really convincing at the centre back. A lot of towering headers to clear it away from his penalty box alongside Disasi. And yeah, the second goal was the pick of the bunch for me. Absolute. It kind of reminded me a bit of David Luiz against Fulham a few years
Yeah,
ago. I mean, 2013, or Rudiger against Brentford, where he just has so much space, and then you just hear the Stamford Bridge crowd starts kind of in unison screaming "shoot,"
yeah, yeah,
and then he just smashes it in, and he made it look easy in a way. But yeah, really good performance. And then as soon as he was on the hat trick, all the Chelsea fans were just crying for him to shoot every time he had the ball, whether that be like in his penalty box or in his own half. But yeah, it's good to know that he has that in his locker, because
yeah,
sometimes we do see a centre back with a bit of a wicked strike, and they will come in handy in some Premier League games. Um, yeah, I feel like Tosin's. I've liked watching Tosin play at Chelsea so far. We haven't really had fully time to cover the performance against Everton in the Premier League, the 0-0 draw. But if we remember, he made that huge
he did.
got that block on almost on the line that rescued us a point, which was really, really good. And I think he's probably our most experienced defender in terms of age, Premier League
Yeah.
experience. I mean, centre back at least. So I think he'll be quite a good figure to have in the dressing room. And I'm not sure you saw that interview after the game where they're asking him a few questions about the goals and the performance and what it means to get through the FA Cup. He only blinked 3 times.
Yeah.
He was like he was like a robot, and like
He
all
is
the
a
comments
robot.
were saying, does this man even blink? I think someone actually counted. It was like a good 2-minute interview, and he only blinked 3 times.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you want to rewatch that, I think it's on the Chelsea Instagram channel.
the good old media training came into full effect there. I think it was just literally media training mode. But yeah, no, he was. I mean, he's good. I think, like I said, he's definitely coming as a squad player. There's a case that he definitely can cover for the likes of Wesley Fofana when they're out injured, or if we need to rest, maybe Levi Koa like we did yesterday. I think I have confidence in him being able to do that defensively, and even to go at. Okay, I keep saying it's Morecambe, but even against some Premier League opposition, I could sense and see that he could do that going forward, and bolstering the attack, helping out with the attack. Set pieces, I think he'll be crucial as well. So I think we've got ourselves a good player there. I don't think he was ever brought in to be number one. He understands his situation, his position. But one of the key things that you mentioned was leadership. And we said last week that we don't really have those leaders in the dressing room. Maresca's come out and said that he is one of those leaders. And I think that's crucial to keep him whilst we're going through this transitional period of centre-backs. We need someone like him in the dressing room, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. When Reece James went off at half-time, even though he's technically our captain, our leader, I don't really consider him as a full leader yet. So you want guys like Tosin, potentially Enzo, who has that World Cup experience. I think Disasi took the armband in the second half. I think he's 27, so you do consider him relatively experienced. But you do want people like that with a bit of experience who aren't kind of afraid to tell players where to be and what to do. And I think Tosin's hopefully one of those players, according to Maresca.
Yeah. It's looking good for Tosin so far. Another player that I think has been knocking on the door. I still class him as part of the B squad, but he's definitely got to be in the conversation. I remember you saying it a couple of weeks ago about João Félix, who has to be included in our main core group of players now. I think not just because of last night's performance, but he's one of those players that I keep saying that about him. When he's got the ball, you expect something to happen, a bit of creativity. He's got something in his locker all the time. And I think last night proved that, the 2 goals were brilliant from João Félix. Is there a case that he should be in Maresca's plans a lot more than he currently is at the moment?
Absolutely. What I would use to describe João Félix is he's talented. He's got a bit of tenacity. He's got a bit of flair. Like you said, he can bring something to the game. And I was frustrated in that Fulham game where we were 1-0 up and we just needed someone to come off the bench and kill the game off. I think the only substitution that Maresca made was Nkunku for Jackson.
Yeah.
And that kind of in a way backfired because Nkunku just looked a bit lackluster off the ball, and his work rate was quite poor. And then all the Chelsea fans on Twitter the next day were like, why did he not bring Felix on? Why did he not bring Felix on? Why is he just sitting on the bench? And I think he's only started, 3 or 4 Premier League games. He's only come off the bench, I think, twice or 3 times in the last 12 Premier League games. So when he did start against Ipswich, I think that was an overall a poor team performance, but I think Felix actually did fairly well. He looked like he
Yeah.
always wanted to do something as soon as he had the ball. Maybe he was just too keen to impress that sometimes, he would lose it. But if you do remember, he scored a relatively offside goal. It was just marginally offside.
Yeah.
But yesterday, I was really impressed with João Félix. Of course, it was Morecambe only, but I think his first goal, he has the confidence to shoot there. He always looked like he wanted to take players on, which is not something that not enough players want to do at Chelsea Football Club. And the second goal for me, we spoke about the toss-in one, but I actually think the second João Félix one was probably the best goal of the day, just simply because he gets past, I think, 2 or 3 players beforehand and almost cuts in and creates the space for himself before shooting. And those curling goals are always so nice to watch. And you could put maybe like one of the top Premier League goalkeepers in there, Alisson and Edison or David Raya, and I think that's still going in top bins. Fantastic goal, and that's hopefully a bit of a wake up call now. A bit of a call to Maresca being like, this is what I can offer, this is what I can do. Hopefully now you can start me more Premier League games. And I think all the fans were chanting his name throughout the second half. So the fans are all in agreement that they want to see him more of João Félix. And it's a player that I really like, but I do still struggle to see where he fits into this lineup. But if Maresca can find a way, if Maresca can hopefully find a way to include both Palmer and Felix and maybe take more of a gamble and play like one centre mid with whoever's playing as the fullback to kind of offer that inverted fullback role and fill in the midfield, then that fills in a space in the offensive line for a João Félix, for an Nkunku, for a Neto, Sancho, Tyrique George. So hopefully we can see more of those kind of formations in Maresca's game plans.
I think it's quite easy to fit them all in. I'm still on this sort of hill that I'm probably going to die on, that Cole Palmer should be playing on the right and Nkunku as the 10 and João Félix maybe on the left side of that. And I think that for me gives you the balance on both sides. It gives you that opportunity to see what Christopher Nkunku can do as a 10, which is what Maresca keeps saying is his best position. And then again, you've got the option of Mark Gu or Nicholas Jackson as your striker. So I think there's definitely opportunity to have all 3 of them in the team. And like you've just said, that gives us options off the bench in terms of Pedro Neto, Sancho, Tyrique George, Madueke as well. So there's lots of options. And I think maybe that's one of the struggles that Maresca does have. He's got too many quality players in that same area of the pitch that he just can't decide who to pick first and who is the guaranteed bankers to start. So I think we need to see a lot more João Félix. I think, like you've just said, I agree with you 100%. And I think when he's playing, you do see a slight difference attacking wise. You do see that he's able to unlock defenses, a trickery, a bit of pop, taking on the players like you just said, cutting in, taking shots, linking up with the striker as well. I think we see a lot of that. I'm not saying that Sancho doesn't do that. He does. I don't think Madueke does that enough on the right side as well. Cole Palmer can do it, but we have to find a way, in my opinion, to fit all 3 of those players in, because I think playing all 3 of those together with a very good striker, which we spoke about last week, whether that's Victor Osimhen or Victor Gyökeres, but we need to bring one of those in. Playing with that sort of flair and having a striker that can score goals would be, I'm not saying it's Premier League winning attacking options, but I think it's up there with some of them, 100%. One thing I wanted to ask you actually was Maresca made subs at half time. You just mentioned he only made 1 sub against Ipswich. I think he only brought on Nkunku for Jackson, but he did change things at half time. Now, you'd probably say that Reece James is always going to come off. He was always going to get 45 minutes. And same with Lavia. We knew that both coming back from injuries. Pedro Neto came off for Jadon Sancho. But is there a case to say that if things aren't working well, for example, against Bournemouth on Tuesday, Maresca has to change things earlier on rather than wait till the 70th, maybe 75th minute into the game and change it earlier? Is that something you're hoping to see from Maresca on Tuesday, if that is the case?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the substitutions we saw on yesterday afternoon, those weren't like game plan substitutions. Those were precautionary substitutions to give players that are going to just come back from injury a bit of a break so they can recover, and maybe a player who's going to start on Tuesday in Pedro Neto a rest before that game. But they weren't at all like tactical substitutions, in my opinion, that would change the way the game was going to be played. But something I do want to see from Maresca is make those substitutions earlier, whether that be at half time, whether that be on the 55th minute mark. And I did mention on the previous recording that I think with third from bottom lowest team that's made the least substitutions throughout the Premier League. I think only Palace, Everton, and maybe City have made less. So yeah, it's definitely something I want to see, especially like I just mentioned that Fulham game where we only made one substitution. And it's not just games where we're winning. I mean, we've often kind of been in relatively good positions, but I want us also to kind of kill games off.
Yeah.
And that's also maybe bring in an attacking player. Or on the contrary, if you are going to just sit back and defend the lead, then make a defensive substitution. But don't like keep the same 11 that started the game who are relatively fatigued. Bring an extra, fresh pair of legs on in a Bajashil, in a Disasi, and maybe have an extra defender on the pitch, even Renato Vega, who can fill in midfield and as a left back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that Maresca needs to do more. And if people are listening to this recording but not the previous one, I just purely think it's due to a lack of trust in some of those players on the bench. And we mentioned João Félix. We're clearly both fans of his, but I still think Maresca didn't really play a part in his signing. It was more the club that signed him for Maresca. Because if we remember back, I think Pochettino didn't want him the previous summer, and the club listened to Pochettino. And then this summer, the same opportunity arose, and this time they went for it, maybe to kind of go ahead of the Gallagher move to Atletico Madrid. But I don't really think Maresca wanted João Félix, especially after just signing Pedro Neto, after maybe still looking at Jadon Sancho, having had Madueke, Mudryk, Palmer, and Nkunku, Tyrique George, who's had a good role in pre-season amongst the squad. So I think that also potentially plays a part in some of these players. We're starting to maybe get a better idea that they're more Chelsea signings than Maresca signings potentially as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. 100%. Let's talk about. Obviously, I watched the Liverpool game before the Chelsea game, and there was a lot of talk about Rio Engamoe, I think, who we let go, and he had a really good game for Liverpool yesterday. But I say that to say this, that whilst we haven't got him, we have got a player called Tyrique George, who I thought was amazing yesterday. Someone that has obviously got the trust, like Josh Ashempong, but has got the trust of Enzo Maresca, not just to play in these games, but he's played a lot of football in the Conference League for us as well over the time. Now, his stats yesterday were I mean, he got I think he got 2 assists yesterday, didn't he? I think. Brilliant player. What was your thoughts about his performance? And I think he played predominantly most of the game on the left side. But yeah, won the ball, possession 6 times, 5 touches in the opposition's box, 5 chances created, 5 crosses, 2 assists, 3 duels won, 3 take-ons completed. There's a question that he's knocking on that door as well as João Félix to be starting a few more games in the league.
Absolutely, yeah. If Josh Ashempong got his first Premier League start a couple weekends ago, then there's definitely a shout for Tyrique George to get minutes in the Premier League as well. I think those two are the two we call out in pre-season, being like they deserve minutes in the Premier League. And Maresca even kind of said that they're knocking on the door to start. They got their lockers in the first team dressing room at Cobham as well. So they're clearly part of Maresca's first team plans. It's going to be an interesting one because I am a bit scared that maybe they're just going to be there and then eventually sold for pure profit in a couple years if we just continue bringing in talent that kind of competitive that's going to play. They're going to compete against, especially with Kendry players and Estevao Willian also coming in the summer. But all they can do is when they do play is to impress, and that's what they've done so far in the Conference League, in the League Cup, and now in the FA Cup and Premier League. And I really like the look of Tyrique George as well. I feel like he's just kind of like a no-nonsense winger. Almost kind of reminds me a bit of Hudson-Odoi when he first broke onto the scene at Chelsea, but maybe with a bit less arrogance as well, because I think Hudson-Odoi did kind of have a bit of a ego to him quite early on, whereas Tyrique George just seems a bit more humble and just wanting to kind of represent the badge, which I like about him. But yeah, really excited to see his development. But I am also curious to see whether he's going to stick around, go out on loan like Alfie Gilchrist did last summer. But yeah, hopefully he can get more minutes both in the FA Cup, Conference League and Premier League.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, part of me agrees with you. I think they are. You can never really trust this ownership. They surprise you in some good ways where we sign Pedro Neto out the blue, and then there's some ways where they force players like Conor Gallagher, Trevor Chalobah out of the team. So it's one of I hope they're here because there's promising signs that they can break through into the first team and get regular football under Maresca. But I'd hate to see them go, because I think, as I just said, watching the young kid play for Liverpool yesterday, I mean, we could honestly do with him. I think he goes to the top. especially at Liverpool, which is unfortunate. He's gone to a rival. But Tyrique George for me is one of those. I agree. Very much like Callum Hudson-Odoi without the ego of Neymar attached to it. But he's got a talent. He's got such a talent, and he's comfortable on the ball. He's not the biggest, but he's quite strong on the ball as well, which I thought is it's a good quality to have, especially as a winger. Dynamic as well. I think he can play both sides, right and left. So we've got to keep him as an option, and let's give him the sufficient time. I'm not saying he should start every Premier League game, but at least incorporate him into the team slowly. But the draw, I think, is tomorrow for the FA Cup. You do, or is it today?
I think it might be after United.
Okay.
Arsenal. I might be wrong.
You could be right. You're more right than wrong. So I think if it is, I'm thinking there hasn't really been many shocks. I'm watching, as we're recording this, I'm watching Tamworth Tottenham, who have actually started relatively okay against Tottenham. Brentford are out, which was a bit of a shock against Plymouth yesterday. Now, the two teams I want in the draw, I'd love to play Coventry.
Yeah, I was thinking Frank Lampard's Coventry. Yeah,
who just scraped through on penalties. They let a late goal in yesterday against Sheffield Wednesday and won on penalties, which was, it's the way to get through the cup sometimes, isn't it? And they had a really good run, if you remember, last season, getting to the semi-finals against Manchester United. Very unfortunate at Wembley, I think, to go out. It was a very controversial game, but I think playing Frank Lampard, it would be such a good story for not just Frank Lampard, but for Chelsea as well. Maybe it's Stamford Bridge for Frank Lampard to come back and manage Coventry there. Millwall's another one. I always think Chelsea Millwall would be a mental game just for the historians of the older Chelsea fans. But what's your hopeful team to get in the next round?
Yeah, so the draw for the Emirates FA Cup fourth round will be made on Sunday, the 12th of January, following the conclusion of the tie between Arsenal and Manchester United. So later this afternoon, we will find out, and we are ball number 13. Lucky number 13.
That means we're going to get City. We're going to get City.
I wouldn't put it past us. But yeah, the two teams you mentioned, Coventry, purely because the kind of Lampard attachment, and you remember he did come back to Stamford Bridge with Derby in the League Cup a couple of seasons ago.
He must have managed Everton as well. Did he? He must have managed Everton in the league against us as well.
I think he did. Yeah. Was that during COVID? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there was. I can't remember. Your memory is better than mine.
Do you know what? I think he never managed a game with Everton at Stamford Bridge.
It was
because he came midway through.
Yeah.
He came midway through.
The season.
I think the season where Benitez got sacked and we played him, I think, under Benitez, and then I think the following season we played him at Goodison, and then he got sacked. Midway through. But yeah, Coventry would be nice. Millwall, I've always wanted to go to the Den. I don't know why. It's just kind of like
not whilst Chelsea are playing there, surely.
No, maybe I'll zip up my hoodie. That's for sure. But the other team I'd love for us to face is Exeter City, because I went to university there, and the ground, St James's Park, was literally like at the end of my road. Yeah. So it's like in the middle of all these university streets. Yeah. And just if I was able to get a ticket and go back to Exeter, it would just feel like a proper FA Cup tie. Yeah. Just like the grounds, the changing rooms, especially if it's in February, it'll be quite cold. So yeah, I think any of those three teams, I still feel like I'd like to avoid one of the bigger teams at this round of the FA Cup. We've been quite lucky always getting home ties. So I think it's about time we kind of get an away one this time. But yeah, Coventry, Exeter City, or Millwall. Yeah. I'll have those three as my go-tos.
I'll throw Birmingham City in there as well, just obviously home city. But no, I'm watching Tamworth here now, and they're giving Tottenham a bit of a run for their money. They're playing on that 4G pitch, so that worries me with our players. I mean, if we had to go to a team like Tamworth and it's the artificial pitch and all the rest of it, I would worry about some of our players picking up a slight injury on those strange pitches. The ACLs, we've not had the best of luck there. But yeah, I agree. A lower opposition I think is always good in this sort of earlier stages of the cup, and then. There was one season, I think, where was it 2 seasons ago, where we had City in both League Cup and FA Cup.
Yeah. First round of both tournaments as well.
Was that Graham? That was Graham Potter, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, Graham Potter. I think it was a 2-0 defeat in the League Cup and a 4-0 defeat in the FA Cup, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah, both at the Etihad.
I think that ruined our season because I think we literally weren't going to win anything that season, and we were
Yeah.
banking on maybe one of those being the cup. We might go through a good cup run, but we went out sadly on both of them. Yeah, but we shall see. Ball 13. The draw is after, you said after the United game, United Arsenal. So let's hope we get a decent draw in the fourth round. But Theo, as always, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can discuss, well, we will. We'll be discussing the Bournemouth game, the video for that will be out tomorrow. So make sure if you, if you're here for that, make sure you join us tomorrow for that one. I agree. We are going to do the video against on Bournemouth. So, yep, CFC Gamers just put in there. Hope we can continue to score goals on Tuesday. I don't think you're the only one there. I think we all hope that as well. But thank you everyone who's joined the live. Thank you very much. We'll be back soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like the videos. Linktree link is in the description as well. So hit that Linktree link. Follow our socials as well. And we'll be back soon.